So this video is about my comedy sketch editing process. So this is gonna be a time lapse of how I edit on Final Cut Pro from start to finish. I'm gonna show you how I go about it, how I assemble it together, how I get to the first, second, and third cut, and ultimately the final cut. It'll be kind of skimming the surface of the whole editing process. I'm gonna pop up throughout the video and kind of talk to you about what exactly you're seeing in the time lapse. So we just shot this morning. The footage is all right here. The one important thing after a shoot is you wanna make sure you have your footage nice and protected in this, some hard plastic case. This is the one I have. I'm gonna put this in my computer and let's get to editing. Hey everyone, check it out, pop-up video, right? Great show from the 90s. This is how I edit on Final Cut Pro. If you use Premiere out there, use Avid. Those are amazing programs as well, so I encourage you to just use whatever you feel comfortable. So what I'm doing right now is I'm importing my footage into Final Cut Pro. I'm making sure that it has proxy setting capabilities. So proxies are low-res video files that can take the place of larger resolution video files in your timeline. So essentially, I'm editing with a hollow version of what the full video is. When you're editing, it's not going to be the same quality as you will when you export it. You're trying to make sure your computer can handle the full editing workload. A lot of these sketches, I'm using a lot of sound effects, I'm using a lot of filters, I'm using a lot of transitions. So using a low-res file, it makes it easier for the computer to compute everything. It makes my process a lot easier so my computer's not freezing. So with the narrative sketch, the one question I get pretty often is, do I edit with the script right beside me? Not always. Sometimes I'll edit with the script, sometimes I won't. If I'm directing, shooting, and editing it, at this point, post-production process, I generally know the whole script. But if I'm just hired to edit, or it was kind of a ringer called in to shoot, and now I'm editing, then maybe we'll have the script with me, but only really on the first cut. After the first cut, I kind of know everything at that point, but also I try to make it my own, and I also try to add my own little flair to the edits and the cuts. Then here comes the fun, kind of tedious part. Literally have to watch through all my footage with a fine tooth comb. Everything I filmed that day, I'm gonna have to watch it all through. If you've seen my sketches before, you'll see that I use a lot of specific reactions, I move quick, I have a lot of cut tos, we try to cram a lot of information in like a 3 or 4 minute span. Generally, that's a lot of footage or a lot of takes that we've shot that day, so I have to make sure that I'm watching over every little bit because I don't want to miss anything. If we have a really good reaction that I caught, and then that could react to something else later on. An assembly cut essentially is a cut that has everything together, but it doesn't have all the sound effects yet, the sound design isn't clean, the video isn't really well put together. It's just a cut that kind of assembles all the takes together, assembles options and variations of the sketch. A 3-minute sketch, an assembly timeline could be about 17 minutes. At that point of the assembled cut, it's very just, bones, bare bones of the structure. And then we kind of whittle that down into the 3 or 4 minute sketch that you guys ultimately see. So if you're at home and you just shot a sketch, one thing I'd encourage you to do is make sure you watch all the takes, watch even the takes that you think were off camera. Too many times I've worked with people before where they just want to watch the first take because they felt that one was good, and they don't even want to bother with this take 2, 3, 4, and 5. But you never know what you can find in those takes, whether it's a reaction, whether it's a line said a different way, whether it's something weird that happened, something funny that happened. If you don't watch the footage, you'll never know. Just for the record, anything with Michael Henry in the sketch, I mean, the takes are always great, right? And once the assembly cut is over, I'll send it over to Michael and then we Zoom chat from there. So I mix all the clips back to back to back so that Michael and I can work via Zoom. We Zoom, we crack jokes, we have a good time, we talk about what makes sense in the sketch, what doesn't make sense in the sketch. At this point, we've narrowed it down from about 17 minutes of the assembly cut into about 4 or 5 minutes of the cut. So this is a true first cut at this point. The sound isn't quite right yet, the look of the video isn't quite right, there's no sound effects, but this is the skeleton of the sketch at this point, and choose the ones that work the best for the jokes and the timing and the pacing and all that stuff that we kind of have an idea for, but you see at the end product. The one thing that makes it hard about Zoom is that the other person that I'm sharing the screen with kind of gets it where they can't see it clear and it lags a little bit. It's a little choppy for the other person. So you don't really get the full feeling of how the edit is, which is why I fine-tune it a tad on my own after the first Zoom meeting and send it over to Michael at that point. Then we get to the really fun part, which I know a lot of people at home like with these sketches, is the sound design. At this point, we have an idea of what sounds and music we want. Honestly, this is my favorite part of editing, is when we get to put the sound effects in. And if you're familiar with the sketches I've worked on, I always try to kind of add some really funny, that I think are funny sound effects, or music in there. I always really try to crank it up with the sound effects. I don't know, I like a good sound effect. Maybe like this. Then once I have the audio levels all set and I make sure the dialogue's all appropriate, fine tune those levels to make sure everything sounds equal and all the levels are appropriate with the sound versus the dialogue and all that. The one thing again about Zoom is when you're sharing screens, you can't always hear the sound quality good for either people. It's really kind of chopped in half. At this point, Michael gives me a final thumbs up. I'm happy with it, he's happy with it, and then we share it. Now, throughout this whole thing, I was referring to this specific sketch. This is generally my practice for any comedy sketch I've worked on. And it does depend on the collaborator you're working with. So if you're working with, you know, maybe a writer, director, actor, they may want to be more involved. If you're working with just a writer, they may want to be less involved. You got to kind of figure out what role they want you to play in the whole post-production process. With Michael, we're very kind of 50-50 on editing it and collaborating. So it's kind of up to you to discuss that with your client and up to you to discuss that with your collaborator on how they narratively want it done. Because again, on a comedy sketch, everyone has different comedic timing, everyone has different pacing that they want to create. So it's really important for you as a director or an editor or a post-production specialist to kind of find that pacing for the person. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, all those 3 pillars of YouTube that people say to do. And here is a very short clip from Michael's video that we just completed. Please make sure you watch the full thing on his page because that's where you want to be. And thank you so much for watching this video. Enjoy the clip.
I don't need somebody working out their inner demons on my body.
Well, that's not really what happens.
Oh, do you even think you good at sex?
Please, talk to the hand.
Is Michael good at sex?
No, he sucks.
Okay, yeah, whatever. Who cares? Y'all could do whatever you want in the bedroom. You could choke each other out for all I care.